Hey everyone, sorry it's been so long since the last upload. I think you'll understand once we get in depth on today's topic. And yes, it's true, let's not bury the lead here. I have cut my stock holdings in half over the past 2 months during the market's meteoric rise. Is it because the market is too high? Are stocks overvalued? Are people being too euphoric? Is the stock market about to crash? You might be surprised. The answer is probably not what you'd expect, so stay tuned after leaving a like on the video. Now that you've done that, let me start off with the disclaimer that I cannot predict with certainty where the market may move over the next few months. With the ongoing virus concerns and the spike in recent cases, I'm honestly surprised that the market hasn't reacted negatively again, even if for a few days. The market has definitely surprised me with how quickly it has bounced off of the March lows and kept soaring higher and higher as if it wants to continue to new highs. Side note, the Nasdaq has already reached new highs. Perhaps investors are focused on the long term, like many claim they are, and see the light at the end of the tunnel. But before we get there, it's going to take some patience and possibly some more wild market action. And it is possible that the markets, or at a minimum, certain stocks are overvalued in the short term. And there probably is euphoria that has appeared in certain areas of the market since the bottom in March. However, short-term market moves are not what I consider a good reason to sell high-quality companies unless you need the money in the short term. So why did I sell half of my stocks then? The answer is pretty simple, actually. I decided to buy a house. In the past, I've kept by far the majority of my money, probably in excess of 90%, in the stock market because I feel confident in the investments I make and know that it's hard to earn any money on idle cash in a checking or a savings account. Recently, I had been looking at houses to see if I could find any that interested me. I wasn't expecting necessarily to find anything, and probably expected to continue renting an apartment for the foreseeable future. But in early May, I happened across a house that I liked and thought it was a great deal. So what did I do? I bought it, of course. Now, this house purchase required that I have cash for a down payment, cash for miscellaneous items needed to improve the home up front, and items like a bed, furniture, etc. that make a home livable. And since I tend to keep a large percentage of my wealth in the stock market, I needed to sell shares of stock to afford this purchase. And that is why I have sold what was half of my stock holdings as of May of this year. The next natural question you might ask is, well, why did you buy a house? Well, for one, interest rates are at all-time lows. I cannot predict where rates will move in the future, but on the surface and without much technical reasoning, I'd guess that it would be hard for interest rates to remain this low forever. Yes, rates have been low for a decade now, but they haven't been this low. And with all the money being printed right now by the Fed, I would expect that to produce inflation and with it, higher interest rates. Though full disclaimer here, I've heard otherwise from some people who study this in more detail. I do not pretend to be an expert in economics. I'm just basing my predictions based on my understanding of how markets work, and these predictions could be totally wrong. But I wanted to take advantage of these low rates while I could, and since I found a good opportunity in real estate, I had to pounce. Another reason I moved my money into real estate that ties into the first point is diversification. With so much of my money in the stock market, I think it makes sense to purchase a house for diversification. In my mind, housing is a hedge against inflation. Inflation is bad for stocks because it drags down asset prices. Who wants to risk their money in the stock market in an environment where guaranteed returns from bonds are competitive with stocks? A house, on the other hand, benefits from inflation because housing is a physical asset comprised of land, wood, bricks, and other building materials. These components can all experience inflation due to high demand. And when inflation drives a physical asset that you own higher in value, you benefit. Renters, of course, do not have the chance of benefiting from an increase in the property's value. Instead, they get hit with higher monthly rent. And then the last financial reason that it made sense to buy a house for me was to build equity in real estate. As a renter, I simply paid my rent every month, and as many people like to say, I was throwing away my money because none of it went towards owning anything myself. Now, I am able to have a portion of my monthly payment due each month go towards in this house. And the last financial reason that it made sense for me to buy a house was the opportunity to build equity in real estate. As a renter, I simply paid my rent every month, and as many people like to say, I was throwing my money away because none of it went towards owning anything myself. Now, on the other hand, I'm able to have a portion of my monthly payment due each month go towards my ownership in this house, which over time will grow as an investment just like a stock would. But with the deal I got on the interest rate, I have little incentive to pay off the mortgage early since I can make a greater return in the stock market over long periods of time, like in the case of a 30-year mortgage. But if I ever accumulate enough funds and decide I don't want to continue holding this debt, I can decide to pay off the mortgage early. Now, while I am super excited about the house from both a personal and financial perspective, I fully expect stocks will continue to fill the bulk of my investments into the future. For me, investing in the markets is much easier and doesn't present opportunity for headaches like buying a property can. Instead of having to wait the near 45 days it takes to purchase a house and then the time it takes to get settled, I can research a company and then instantly buy shares when I think the price is right. With that said, I've got some really good informational videos coming up for you guys, so stay tuned for those by subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications so you don't miss when a new video comes out. See you next time.